Peace. How's it going, Patrick? Conservative Rap. And in this video, let's get into the central bank. Let's talk about resetting the Great Reset, which is what Trump and the Patriots are doing. How there's a new system competing with the old fiat currency system, and the deep state at large is panicking. Doesn't matter whether it's tariff sales, gold sales, technology sales, oil. We're going to be looking at a lot, especially come 2026. So let's take a quick look. This is going to be Peter St. Onge on X. Major UBI study, screen, finds, hint, hint, giving cash to poor people makes them quit work. They don't get health or start a business. They don't get their life together. They actually become worse parents. Like most welfare, universal basic income is about bribing the poor to stay that way. Listen.
Another universal basic income trial has failed, doing exactly what you expect. People quit their job to sit on the couch and collect free money, canceling out the free money. In fact, they got worse. Maybe socialism will work this time. The study was funded by OpenAI's Sam Altman and handed 3,000 people $1,000 a month for 3 years, so $36,000 per person total. The cash was no strings attached. They wanted to see what it did to work, health, parenting, and starting businesses. The idea was to test what UBI advocates claim, which is that free money makes people work harder, stop eating junk food, found startups, and I guess read stories to their kids. Shockingly, that's not how it works. In fact, the free money made it worse. They did not start businesses. They did not lose weight. There was zero impact on health. They claimed better parenting, presumably to please the donors, but in fact, their children experienced worse developmental difficulties and did not get better grades or school attendance. In fact, in Illinois, the grades got worse. The handouts did not even impact food security or likelihood to be homeless. And the reason was simple. They stopped working. Recipients were 50% more likely to be unemployed. This matters because it's well known that unemployment makes people depressed and suicidal, but also because work is how poor people escape poverty. They get experience, build habits like showing up on time and not drunk. They gain on-the-job skills that earn them the raises that get them out of poverty. In other words, free cash does not help the poor. It bribes them to stay poor. These results are consistent with dozens of UBI studies, but they keep trying because buying votes from poor people is the holy grail of the left, since long before AI and robots became the fashionable talking point. The idea is backwards. Being poor is a symptom of bad habits, lack of grit in industry. Giving them free cash makes it worse. Moreover, the concept of UBI presupposes that jobs are a bad thing. In fact, not only do jobs give people a sense of purpose, they are fundamental to our social fabric. Because a job is just shorthand for saying you do nice things for strangers and they do nice things in return. So the girl at 7-Eleven is kind enough to make me a sandwich because I am kind enough to pay her rent. Take away the jobs, and strangers don't do anything for each other. Society becomes atoms bouncing around, or more likely, atoms sleeping on the couch. So it's next brought to you by I Trust Capital. The left is desperate.
Yeah. So you guys get the idea. Nothing we didn't know, but fascinating to see how complex some of these studies become in order to prove common sense. Now I'm going to move over to Ultra Pepe Lives Matter. The American penny is history. You may have heard of that. Nickel could be next. Why? Because a nickel is 75% copper and 25% nickel. It costs nearly 14 cents to mint, yet it's only still worth 5. Read that again. It counts 14 cents to mint, but it's still only worth 5. Or more proof the value of the currency is declining. The metals are worth more than what they represent in currency. And yeah, let's talk about decentralization for moving further. Here's a Joe Lange on Truth, or rather on X. Here's a good article full of good information, but it completely misses what Doge was all about. It also misses what Trump is doing and why the deficits are growing. It was back in February when we explained to Elon Musk why his strategy to shock the U.S. government into spending efficiency through Doge, while noble, is ultimately doomed. What Musk is doing is trying to streamline the government. He's quoting the article, of course. But Congress decides that game. And there are things as status quo as always. Status quo it was indeed, and it took the world's richest man several months to realize it. And while there has been a heated fight in the press as to whether or not Doge is still technically active inside the Trump admin, we have some bad news. After a valiant start at 25, the U.S. has regressed to its old drunken sailor spending ways, and has seemingly done so on steroids. Earlier today, the Treasury published the October budget data, and it was ugly. And what he's quoting from is this Zero Hedge article that he actually disagrees with. I like this analysis, but let's move back. Government revenues were exactly 23.7. As usual, is government spending that was the problem again, and 688.7 billion, or over 22 billion per day. The October total was a 17.9% jump compared to 584.2 billion spent a year prior. The combination of these two numbers resulted in 284 deficit for the month of October, which is not only higher than the deficit last October, but also higher than the record COVID budget disaster of 28.4 billion in October 2020. Right? So on Zero Hedge, they're arguing that Doge ultimately was been a failure if you just assess government spending overall throughout the year. So for people stuck in the past, here we're going back to Joe Lange, who don't know the real reason why Doge was created and what its real purpose was, it looks like a failure. But rooting out and exposing fraud was only part of the reason Doge was created, and it was effective in doing that. USAID has been shut down and fraud has been exposed in Social Security, Medicaid, and SNAP, which are now being cleansed. But Doge was never going to decrease the deficit or the debt explicitly. The author blames the increase in deficit spending on Congress, but that ignores the fact that Congress passed Trump's big, beautiful bill because it's what he wanted. It was the reason that the government spending and deficits are expanding. Why is Trump massively growing government spending and increasing the deficit and debt? Is he doing this on purpose? When you step back and look at the picture, you realize exactly what Trump is doing. He's purposely bankrupting the system. He's moving us out of the fiat debt system and into a new system of honest money backed by gold. Trump is increasing spending because he's maxing out the Federal Reserve credit card before he bankrupts them. It's that simple. Many can't see the forest for the trees. For those living on the past, focusing on the trees of deficit and debt, rather than the forest of things happening in the background pointing in a specific direction, the government spending actually is better overall. The faster we bankrupt the system, the sooner we'll move into a new system of financial freedom. But here's another reason why Doge is important and a massive success. It's creating a new system within the government that keeps track of every single taxpayer dollar. I believe that they are installing the blockchain system that will force our entire government to be transparent and prevent corruption in the future. That's how they're exposing the fraud. They're simply following the money. Doge is transforming the entire government, power back to the people. So remember, this new system is not going to be based on fiat. I'll stop sharing now. The new system is going to show how the currency will soon not need to lose value, and we won't have to pay back the interest. There won't be deflation of the national currency, and especially if we go back to Fort Knox and reevaluate the gold, you might see it like the Fed restructured ultimately into the Treasury. What do you think? Feel free to comment, like, subscribe, share, and check me out at ConservativeRap.com for more. Thanks, and take care.